In case my love letter to Anohana didn't make it abundantly clear, I stand pretty hard for Mari Okada. As an English speaker, it can be a bit hard to fully appreciate the more subtle, lyrical qualities of her dialogue, but anyone can see and appreciate the depth and humanity that she writes into her characters. Whenever I hear that she's writing an original script for an anime, I get excited. So naturally, when I saw that Hanasaku Iroha and Blast of Tempest director Masahiro Ando was slated to adapt Okada's first manga, O Maidens in Your Savage Season, and that she would be composing the script for it, it immediately became one of my most anticipated shows of the summer. And as high as my hype for this show was, I am happy to report that thus far, it has more than lived up to it. O Maidens bears all the hallmarks of both creators' best works. It's a tale of nuanced, well-developed characters struggling to understand their own turbulent emotions, which are externalized brilliantly through bold, subjective camera work and editing. But where many of Okada's best-known works and both of her previous collaborations with Ando have been more on the serious and dramatic side of the anime spectrum, this show bills itself first and foremost as a comedy. And holy crap, what a glorious, gut-busting, hearty cackle laugh of a comedy it is. With its twisted sense of humor and uncompromising approach to its subject matter, this show has made me giggle more and harder than any other comedy I've seen so far this year, and I'm here today to tell you why you need to sit down and watch or read it also today. Or failing that, as soon as humanly possible. As its title so poetically hints, O Maidens in Your Savage Season seeks to explore perhaps the single funniest and most painful stage of almost every person's life, puberty. The series follows 5 awkward, geeky girls in a high school literature club as their noble, scholarly pursuits are progressively waylaid by hormonal impulses, sexual desires, and a growing realization that if you look at it the right way, literally everything on the planet is a lewd euphemism. Our heroine is Kazusa Onodera, a quiet girl with nothing really special about her, which, as her best friend and clubmate Momoko Sudo is keen to point out, kinda makes her special in its own way. Lately, Kazusa has found herself thinking a lot about her next-door neighbor and childhood friend, Izumi, who's gradually grown apart from her, or to be more accurate, been pulled away from her by other jealous girls after hitting a growth spurt and getting hot. That's not the only kind of hot spurt that Kazusa sees him experience, but we'll get to that. First, let me introduce the rest of the literature club. Momoko is about as shy and soft-spoken as Kazusa is, but she hasn't gone quite as boy-crazy, though she has started to fixate a bit on how beautiful and elegant their other best friend, Nina Sugawara, is. Nina, for her part, at first seems like a bit of an outlier in the motley crew of dorks, a cool beauty and former child actress who catches the eye of every boy at school, but in a way, that can be just as isolating for a girl as getting no attention at all, and the literature club is the only place where she can really be herself. The blunt Hitoha Hongo is the club's resident aspiring writer, who's been tasked by her obnoxious dipshit editor to write an erotic novel that he can then sell as the audacious debut of a high school genius. Knowing literally nothing about sex, she's taken to researching it through online chat rooms, which I'm sure won't go wrong in any way. Lastly, there's club president Rika Sonozaki, an outspoken, hardcore prude who wants nothing to do with boys, damn it, so stop talking about them and making her think about them. And that one boy had better stop being so darn cute and nice. Ugh, they're infuriating. Yeah, the series has a lot of fun with her, and with all of them, because while puberty sucks when you're going through it, it is hilarious in hindsight, and when you see it happen to someone else. As the great Mel Brooks once said, tragedy is when I cut my finger. Comedy is when you fall in an open sewer and die. High school rom-coms like this often default to drawing humor from comedically exaggerated misunderstandings, and don't get me wrong, when those scenarios are handled well, they can be a laugh riot. But seeing so many shows lean into the same formula time and again can get tedious after a while, and stories driven by that trope, by their nature, tend to move kinda slowly. A big part of O-Maiden's charm is that it often bucks that trend. Its characters do talk past each other, hide things from each other, and just not get each other sometimes. They're teenagers after all. But puberty is characterized as much by sudden hyper-awareness and moments of clarity, like finally getting the raunchy jokes embedded in every family film, as it is by confusion. And O-Maidens really enjoys playing up those shocking revelations for comedic effect. The first scene in the show that really had me rolling on the floor, for example, was Kazusa's rude awakening from her self-perpetuated delusion that Izumi is still just a good little boy who loves nothing more than he loves trains, and who wouldn't even think about that sort of thing. The scene begins with Kazusa's mom sending her next door to deliver some leftovers to Izumi. When she arrives, she finds the house dark and empty, with faint sounds of music coming from the top floor. Kazusa's slow climb up the darkened stairway plays out like something out of a horror movie, tension building as the music grows louder, until eventually she peeks through the door and sees literally the only thing you'd expect to see in a teenage boy's room, with the music blasting when no one's home. After processing the scene before her for a few moments, Kazusa runs away screaming and sprints frantically through a cityscape full of innuendo before stopping to contemplate the implications of a train going into a tunnel. A well-worn sight gag to be sure, but it's a classic for a reason. The scene's a laugh riot, and it shows how world-defining sex can be when you first become aware of it. Kazusa and her clubmates don't really want to think about S.E. Batsu, as they put it, but more and more it's getting to be all they can think about. And as the image of Izumi in her mind gets tangled up in the monolithic concept of copulation, that internal paradox puts more and more strain on their already difficult friendship. Whether the bonds between them will strengthen or shatter under this new pressure remains to be seen, but the series makes it clear there's still hope. Puberty changes everything, but at the same time, for all that does change, the people who experience it do largely stay the same. Another paradox that the series delights in exploring. O-Maidens is commendable for its entertainment value alone, but amid all the jokes and drama, there are hints of nobler aspirations. The show is keen to bring up the idea that great literature can help us put into concrete terms emotions and experiences that we're struggling to understand. Kazusa and co. will often relate their own feelings to passages in books they've been reading, and one of the show's favorite gags is having characters tease each other with double entendres and saucy scenes in the books they're reading aloud. In the same vein, O-Maidens aims to provide its viewers and readers with a bit of unconventional sex education by having its characters openly experience the uncomfortable, sometimes unhealthy emotions and desires that come with sexual awakening, aspects that most stories about teenage romance tend to gloss over, allowing, in theory, for its younger readers and viewers to put words to things that other stories ignore. It is rare to see anime and manga tackle this subject matter in such a thoughtful way, and rarer still to see any real exploration of puberty from a girl's perspective, especially in a shonen imprint. Romantic comedies for teenage boys can be pretty risque, but their aim when they go there is almost always titillation, not romantic catharsis, and their equivalent for teenage girls tends to emphasize a pure, chaste ideal of love that, let's be real here, doesn't exist. While I don't think their intent is bad, both kinds of love story can leave their generally young, confused, and impressionable audiences with unrealistic and unhealthy expectations in regards to love and sex, creating the impression that they're two wholly separate things when, even if they are, making that separation isn't something that most teenagers, let alone most adults, are equipped to do. O-Maidens, in contrast, is largely about how separating those two aspects of romance can be next to impossible, and the stress that struggling to do so, while also dealing with society's expectations, can put on a developing mind. Kazusa's difficulties in separating her memories of who Izumi was, her feelings for who he is, and her urges to, while also dealing with all the girls who see her as a threat, are just one example of this. Rika Senpai's puritanical attitude towards sex and romance, likely a product of those unrealistically pure love stories, puts her at odds with most of her class, and puts a lot of strain on her when she starts catching feelings for the class clown, Shun. The ideal that she strives for, of chaste, scholarly nobility, clearly isn't making her happy, and it's certainly going to be hell on any potential romantic partner. Watching them both work to tear those walls down feels really satisfying. This being a Mari Okada joint, there are, of course, a few tear-jerking moments mixed in with all the laughs, but in contrast to the likes of Anohana, Maidens seemingly prefers to go for tears of joy over misery. One of the first scenes that really got me comes when Shin hands Rika a 50-page essay about why he likes her. 49 of those pages are just the word cute written over and over, but as simple as it is, that praise coming from someone she loves manages to wash away a mountain of hurt feelings and insecurities built up by years of bullying and cruel schoolyard gossip. That scene hits. Rika's story thus far has delivered the most unambiguously heartwarming moments in the series. She also develops a slow-growing friendship with Jujo Sonoe, a pretty and popular gyaru from her class who's not shy about how much she likes doing it with her boyfriend. The nice, sexually confident gyaru is a bit of a trope at this point, but I'm a bit of a sucker for it, and something about their interactions just puts a big smile on my face. That trope is certainly fitting for a series about girls pushing back against society's expectations of them, a theme that's most prominent in Nina Sugawara's arc. As I said, Nina's pretty and popular with the boys around her, but that's not an entirely good thing. She's been dealing with the pressure of men's sexual expectations for a lot longer than the rest of the girls, and from a much younger age than anyone should have to think about that, which has clearly fucked her up. She also has to deal constantly with jealousy from the girls around her, which makes her just as much a target for bullying as Rika. She's got a deep interest in sex tempered by a twisted view of what it entails, for reasons that we'll touch on shortly, and it's heavily implied that she's at least thinking about committing suicide. If and when Mari Okada goes for more on-brand tear-jerking, I'm willing to bet that Nina will be at the center of it, though I'm hoping the series will ultimately offer positive solutions for what she and the other maidens are going through. Maiden's story is still ongoing, so I can't say for sure where it will end up, but as it's written, I think it already offers some great tools for helping its adolescent audience better understand what they, their friends, and their crushes are going through, while delivering uproarious comedy and compelling, mostly uncliched romantic tension. The series does take some of its characters to pretty dark, taboo places, which might understandably leave a bad taste in some viewers' mouths. But what separates it, in my mind, from trashy romance stories like, say, Citrus or Domestic Girlfriend, is that it offers up commentary on and criticism of these taboo scenarios, instead of simply depicting them to make the story feel more racy and exciting. It's revealed early on that Nina's emotional hang-ups and cavalier attitude towards sex are, in part, the byproduct of years of pseudo-sexual grooming by the pedophilic director of her theater troupe. While Nina doesn't yet fully understand how badly this abuse has harmed her, through Izumi's reactions, the series makes it abundantly clear up front that he is meant to be viewed as a Class A creep, and that what he did to Nina, what he projected onto her, even though he never did anything with her, was fundamentally not okay. And in a cultural climate where games can be torn down from store shelves because an actor enjoyed a bit of booger sugar while Nobuhiro Watsuki gets to keep writing Rurouni Kenshin after being fined $2,000 for possession of child porn, I think that framing the scenario with that context is really damn important. Equally damn important is Maiden's inclusion of an explicitly gay character in Momoko. More than any of the other maidens, she struggles to properly identify what she's going through because so little of the literature she can read represents the experiences of a homosexual kid. She's very obviously attracted to Nina, but she hasn't been given the words to express and understand that attraction yet. Puberty's hard on everyone, but from what my LGBTQ friends tell me, it's especially difficult when most of the formative media you experience doesn't acknowledge that you exist. So it's great that Maidens represents alternative sexualities at all, and especially great that it specifically explores how lonely an experience puberty can be for a gay kid with lots of straight friends. Through Momoko's eyes, we're also shown how uncomfortable unwanted romantic advances can be, as she's bombarded with texts by an old elementary school classmate who's a nice guy who pays for tiny fractions of girls' meals, because that's what nice guys do, you know? Who just wants to be friends and maybe help her break out of her shell a bit, because she's so shy, you know? Essentially, he's projecting his own feelings and intentions onto her instead of making any effort to understand where she's coming from, and the way he communicates as a result of this is exasperating, annoying, and Yeah, in general, I think this series is as valuable for boys going through puberty as it is for girls, offering a window into the heads of what can seem like alien creatures at that stage of life. And in particular, I think that seeing what it's like to be on the receiving end of an uninvited barrage of well-intentioned texts is something that will open a lot of young, stupid eyes. At the very least, I know that's something a teenage Geoff could have benefited from. Sorry, I need a second to unclench my everything after experiencing that retrospective cringe. While I'm doing that, please enjoy this word from today's sponsor. Bookwalker is Kadokawa's official light novel and manga ebook store, where you can buy hundreds of works of English-translated Japanese literature and take your book collection with you wherever you go. Their reader works on phones, tablets, and PCs, and I've personally found its bookmark and highlight functions to be a godsend whenever I'm reading something to prepare for a video. If I have the option, Bookwalker is my go-to choice for reading on the go, and once you try it for yourself, I think it'll be yours too. Bookwalker is giving Mother's Basement viewers 600 yen off any book on their store, and all you gotta do to claim it is use the promo code BASEMENT when you check out. As you can probably guess, one of the books they have is the Maidens in Your Savage Season manga, which is just as fantastic as the anime, and rather than picking one over the other, I'd strongly recommend experiencing both. Where the anime leverages the strengths of cinema to deliver its jokes and help you get inside its characters' pathologically horny heads, the manga makes impeccable use of panel spacing and layout to achieve similar results. The tense, multi-page spread that leads up to Kazusa walking in on Izumi and the slow reveal that follows is masterful in its own right in the manga, and the series keeps up that level of visual comedy throughout. Bookwalker's high-resolution scans make it easy to appreciate the finer details of Maiden's gorgeous artwork, but whether you buy this series or any of the other wonderful manga and light novels on Bookwalker, just make sure you use that promo code, BASEMENT, when you check out to get 600 yen off your order. Okay, I'm back, and the power of shilling has purged the shame from my body. Maidens in Your Savage Season does have a few blind spots in its exploration of sexuality. It doesn't really touch on asexuals, for instance, and that's a shame because nothing does, but it handles the subjects that it does choose to tackle smartly, using salacious subject matter to create powerful comedy and drama, and justifying that use by always having something to say about it. Well, almost always. Hongo-san's story arc, which sees her trying to charge headfirst into adulthood with the aid of her chat partner Milo, who, without spoiling things, is obviously a lot older than she is, goes to some decidedly questionable places. While it's clear that he's not into high school girls at all and the feelings she develops for him are entirely one-sided, he doesn't exactly discourage them or her advances, and the series doesn't really paint him as a bad guy like it does Nina's director, either. The justification for this seems to be that he wants to help Hongo better understand her sexuality so that she can be a better writer, and that she's blackmailing him to some extent, but this storyline is still an absolute minefield of potentially unfortunate implications, and it's only because of the show's deft handling of everything else, as well as my aforementioned standing for Okada, that I have any hope that it will be resolved in a satisfying fashion. I will certainly be sad if it isn't, because Hongo is easily my favorite member of the core cast. As someone who was once an aspiring teenage writer, there's obviously a lot about her that I can relate to, and the devastating deadpan sass bombs that she's proven capable of dropping are just delightful. Even with that edge of personal relatability, Hongo doesn't come out too far ahead of the rest of the cast in my personal rankings list. Every member of the literature club and most of the supporting characters surrounding them are thoroughly charming in their own right, and the supportive dynamic of the core group of girls in particular gives me a similar vibe to A Place Further Than the Universe, which is about as high praise as one can conceivably give to a female-centric coming-of-age anime. The nature of this story and the dramatic demands of its genre tell me that these bookworms probably won't always be on the friendliest of terms with each other, but the show's done such a great job of endearing me to them that if they ever do come to harder blows than a pillow fight, I'm not sure I'll know who to root for, and that, to me, is a sign of truly great character writing. We really are spoiled for choice with all of the great anime coming out this summer, but Maidens in Your Savage Season is the one show out of all of them that's been on my mind the most. It's funny, cathartic, and intriguing in its storytelling, and on top of all that, like Anohana before it, it's one of those shows that I think is going to have a powerful, positive effect on the people who watch it. If you're not one of those people, I urge you to change that. You can watch Oh Maidens in your Savage season right now on High Dive, where new episodes are being simulcast every week, and of course you can pick up the first 3 volumes to read for yourself on Bookwalker. That said, if you want to spend a bit more time on YouTube before you go watch it, Yazzie and I just put out a review of the audacious isekai light novel J.K. Haru is a Sex Worker in Another World over on our second channel, Basement Life. Click the link on screen or in the doobly-doo to check that out and subscribe, and look forward to watching more book reviews and other fun stuff over there in the near future. I'm Geoff Thew, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.